Welcome in, everybody. It is Catfish on Ice live episode 219 with your host, Chad Minton and Max Greenberg. Welcome in. I am on the back end of a cold, everybody. So, it's that time of year. Everyone's fighting off colds. I'm really hoping that's all the Nashville Predators are going through right now is a cold. One of those colds that you get in the middle of winter, and it puts you on the shelf for a little bit because the Preds are slumping. Max, how are you doing, man?
Well, I fear I might just be starting a cold. I got a little bit of a cough that developed last night. I'm hoping it's just a cough so far. I'm hoping nothing else materializes. I had a cold 3 months ago, and that's not long at all.
Since we're airing out our grievances right now on colds, I've had 2 colds in the last month. So when I went back home to Nashville, I had a cold. And then this Florida guy, I've been in Florida for a year and a half now, and I am absolutely just so weak when it comes to cold. When the temperature drops below 60 degrees, I am weak. I can't handle it anymore. Half of living in Florida for me to be so weak when it comes to temperatures when it drops below 60. But yes, so I have been watching the Predators from afar, but I have definitely been battling the cold bug here lately. But I am ready. I have a lot of stuff to get off my chest. Max does as well. A lot of stuff has happened since our last live episode of Catfish on Ice. The Predators, they are in a rut right now, Max. They are in one of those mid-season ruts. And what do I always say? I always say you cannot let this snowball, no pun intended, based on all my Nashville friends who just dug themselves out of the great Nashville blizzard.
Oh, yeah. No, I left my apartment like maybe 5 times all of last week. I'm not even joking. Maybe that's the reason I got a cold now, because I just walked outside
maybe
a few days ago for the first time in a while. Like, man.
Yeah. So, the Predators, they are in a rut right now for sure. We are going to discuss in our opening face-off, how do they pull out of it? What is the main cause of this? Is there any hope ahead? What can they do? I will say right now, preface it before we really get into it. I would never call a game in January a must win, but man, this game against the Minnesota Wild coming up on Thursday, we're recording on a Wednesday, so tomorrow, it really feels like a game you got to have right now. I don't know about you, Max, but man, maybe it's because of the bias in me because it's the Minnesota Wild and it's John Hines and it's what they did to us the last time we saw them, where they just completely curb stomped us. But it feels like for the psyche, you got to have this game on Thursday.
I mean, if you want to keep your season hopes alive, you really do. And I mean, there's 4 games left until the All-Star break begins. And, that's going to, and when we come back from that, it's going to be on February 10th. And I would think by then, I mean, you never know how things change, but by then you would think that the Preds, like Barry Trotz's mind, is going to be pretty much made up whether or not he wants to be a buyer or seller at the deadline.
I mean, we're going to get into that as well. I'm glad you brought that up, Max. So later in this episode, we're 6 weeks away from the trade deadline, give or take. But go listen to episode 218. I recorded that last week with Clay Brewer of Nashville Hockey Now. We really got deep into it. But even since then, a lot has changed. So we are going to dive a little deeper into what we think is in the mind of Barry Trotz right now, going into his first official trade deadline as an NHL general manager. So really, who knows what's going to happen? But also, we got some other stuff to get into. So Juuso Parssinen has been sent down to the Milwaukee Admirals. Yep. I always hate to put it in that terminology, sent down. It makes it sound so bad. And I don't think it's a bad thing for Juuso Parssinen to be, let me say it a little bit better, reassigned or assigned to the Milwaukee Admirals. Because the guy basically bypassed the Milwaukee Admirals.
Yeah, he wasn't there for long at all. And, for a guy like that, it's normal for young players to go through, through rough times. And, if you just take a look, I mean, at his base stats, they're clearly worse than last year. And, it seems like these past couple of games, or a lot of the games this year, he's kind of felt invisible. So I'm with you. I don't have a problem at all sending him back down to Milwaukee for, I don't know how long it's going to be. It could be like a few weeks. Could be the rest of the year for all we know. I don't know what exactly Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette are planning as far as that's concerned. But, you know, for a guy like Juuso Parssinen, it's certainly not the end of the world for him. But, you know, I certainly support him going back down there, finding his game again. And yeah, and people
So we're going to get into it a little bit more.
But I don't think it's a terrible thing at all. I think just find his confidence back.
We're really going to get into it a little bit more. We're going to look at how it impacts the lineup, what it can mean for Parssinen moving forward, all those things. What head coach Andrew Brunette said about it. One thing I really like about Brunette is he's very unfiltered when it comes to his roster decisions. I really appreciate that from him as a head coach. So we're going to get a little bit into that a little bit more. Also, some roster news that just dropped today. Cole Smith, who has been a prove-it type of player ever since he's been with the Predators, has come full circle. You know, all the fans, you know, love his gritty, hard-hitting style, but he's always been the punching bag of this team and this fan base. But he has gradually earned the respect of, I would say, the vast majority of this fan base. Yeah. But even more importantly, he's earned the vast majority of the respect of the people who sign his paychecks, and that's the Nashville Predators front office. He gets a 2-year deal worth $2 million total. Not a massive, earth-shattering deal by any means, but for him, it's his first multi-year deal of his NHL career. So that's pretty awesome stuff for him.
Yeah, and you know, well, I don't want to go into it too far right now, but you know, certainly the way he's played, he's improved, and you know, he's proven he works hard and does some good things well. He's a good role player, and I love the deal. I mean, it's certainly not a deal that's gonna make a huge difference to the Preds one way or another. You know, he's still a bottom 6 role player, like I said, but I think it's great value for a guy like Cole Smith. I love it.
Yeah. A couple other things to get into tonight on episode 219 of Catfish on Ice, presented by DraftKings, promo code THPN, and also part of the Hockey Podcast Network. We are going, I want to give out the results of a poll I sent out last week. I honestly forgot that I sent it out because I put it on a 7-day voting deadline or whatever.
Wow, that's a long time.
I totally forgot I sent it out.
I didn't even know you could do a 7-day.
You can actually, apparently. I don't know, but yeah. So I sent out a poll last week, ancient history, I know, on what Preds fans think who the Preds fans think will be the starting goaltender on opening night 2024-25. Your 4 options were UC Saros, Yaroslav Askarov, Kevin Lankinen, or Donald Trump. No, I'm so sorry. That was a joke. That was a very bad joke. I'm so sorry. Not Donald Trump, but other. Right. Other was the 4th choice. I'm going to give those results. Pretty good results. Pretty interesting. Some comments we got as well. And then me and Max will dive into who we think will be the starter. That'll round out episode 219. Also, got to get into the Central Division rundown. Major topic, really my biggest topic is, I mean, it's really horrible timing, but the NHL decided to talk about NHL expansion today to Utah. So we will talk about that later. But before we even do that, let's go ahead and just get it out there. It's a really ugly day for the hockey world. I really am sick of the hockey world being in the headlines in the sports media and national news for the most terrible and horrendous reasons. And so, Max, what's going on here, man? The World Junior team from 2018, 5 players are alleged of sexual misconduct. A lot of bad things going on here. Some players have taken leaves of absence, including Carter Hart is the big name there. But when it comes to sexual assault allegations, it doesn't matter what your name is. They're all bad. It's all bad. What do you have with the list there and some of the things that are going on here?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it's a pretty cut and dry topic that is never okay. And I don't really know what else to say as far as that's concerned. You know, if it's, and, you know, let me just say, and, you know, Chad very much agrees with this, you know, we don't know entirely for sure what is true and what's not. We're not here accusing anyone of anything. We're going off the news that's reported. And the news that's reported said 5 players, and I'm about to list them, were named in this sexual assault these allegations. They are Michael McLeod and Cal Foote of the New Jersey Devils. Cal Foote played for the Preds a little bit towards the end of last year. Carter Hart of the Philadelphia Flyers. That's obviously the big name here. Dylan Dubé of the Calgary Flames, who's not a nobody. He's been in the league for a while. He's been on the Flames for a good bit. And then former NHL player Alex Formenton, who's now with the team in Europe. And they've all been asked to surrender to police to face sexual assault charges. So
yeah,
I
in
mean,
London. So I've got this here in front of me as well. Per a release from London Police Service, their social media bulletin on this. We understand that there is significant public interest in relation to a sexual assault investigation dating back to 2018. We anticipate that the LPS will hold a press conference on Monday, February 5th, 2024 to share further details, which, I mean, look, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a legal scholar. Like you just said, Max, I'm never going to jump into with all the pitchforks and burn someone at the stake when I don't know the facts. We are not insiders on this podcast. Me and Max can only go off the same things that the media provides that all of you have in front of you. So we weren't going to start this podcast without addressing this very serious matter. And just how I just opened it up, I'm really sick of having to talk about things like this, not because the victims don't matter, because the victims do matter. I'm more sick of it in the sense of it's such a stain on just life in general that these things come up, and there's people out there who do things like this. Yeah. And if there was any kind of cover up, which it doesn't look good right now, I can just tell you right now, it does not look good. Any kind of cover up is just horrendous. It's horrible. It's despicable. And we'll wait for the facts to come out. And I mean, I don't understand why a press conference has to wait until February 5th to learn some facts. The public deserves to know. Yeah. Very shady stuff. That's all we're going to say on it. Not because we don't care or because that it's not important, but just because we're just two guys doing a podcast.
Yep.
And we can't speak on all of this without knowing the facts, because these are serious allegations. All we can say is it's awful, and it's another really ugly stain on this sport. Yeah. And until we learn more facts, that's all I can really say about it right now. Yeah. So with that said, let's move on here. Let's try to talk some positive things. Let's try to talk some hockey tonight on Catfish and Ice episode 219 with our opening face-off, and that is that clearly, Max, I'm going to give you the floor here to open us up here, but I know you realize this. The Predators' offense has definitely they got a flat tire. They might have 2 flat tires. They got the hazard lights on right now. They're pulling off to the shoulder on the highway because, look, 2 goals or less in their last 4 games, 9 goals in their last 5 games. And we were sold that this team was going to be flashy, use a lot of speed, score a lot. That's what Andrew Brunette is supposed to bring to this team. We're over halfway through the season. The honeymoon period is probably ending right now with this fan base. Max, what's plaguing this team in your eyes?
I think, just being able to watch the game, see what's happening out there. I think a common theme for Preds, this might seem like Captain Obvious kind of statement, but it seems pretty clear that the Preds right now are having trouble, getting to the scoring areas that matter, like the high percentage slot. They're getting very few chances down there. I think a textbook example of that was the game last Monday on Martin Luther King Day against Vegas. We actually possessed the puck for a while. We did a lot of good things, and a lot of people said we kind of outplayed them in some ways, but they destroyed us when it came to defending the slot area. We couldn't get down there to save our lives, and the chance that we got that game, their goaltender, I think it was Logan Thompson, whoever was in goal for the Knights that game, didn't really struggle to make saves at all. And I think as far as how is it fixable? What's going to happen? I think there's definitely some element of going through a tough time, and knowing the kind of coach Brunette is, knowing that the team has been able to do what they've done all year and score. They've gotten a lot out of this roster that's full besides the top line of this team and one or two guys on defense. Probably Yossi and McDonough. It's mostly young players and role players, and it's one of those things where they've done a lot, and I certainly think Brunette can adjust. But I think that one thing that this fan base is going to have to come to terms with is we might have gotten a little bit ahead of ourselves during the winning streak in November, December. Not saying this team isn't going to be any good in the future, but just where they are right now, the level of inexperience and and like I say, a roster full of young, inexperienced guys and role players is going to go through their struggles, and this team we may have to accept this team this year may just not be a threat. And that's honestly okay because they weren't expected to be. And we hope it gets better. We want them to score goals because that was the strength of this team. But, I think people are going to have to be able to be okay with there's going to be inconsistency. And this is part of that.
So speaking to that, I think that obviously the elephant in the room here when it comes to the offense is, and I'm going to get some pushback on this, but it's just the facts. And it really kind of speaks to what you just said, Max. Everyone wanted to see these younger players in bigger roles. Everyone wanted to see your Philip Tomasinos, your Juuso Parssinens, who we're about to talk about, your Luke Evangelistas, your Tommy Novaks. They wanted to see them in second-line roles and playing every night and be thrust into the lineup. These are all very, very recent draft picks when you're really talking about the hockey spectrum and how long it takes to develop a prospect. These players I'm just talking about forwards. I'm not even talking about defensemen because it's mainly forwards. So you're going through these growing pains, and that's where your secondary scoring is expected to come from right now. And so when you look at the Predators and when you look at when they were going through all that success in November into December, Philip Forsberg was on a tear. Ryan O'Reilly was one of the top power play goal scorers in the league. He still is. Gus Nyquist is having a revival of his career. All three of those players are veterans. Colton Sissons is on a tear by his own standards when it comes to offense right now. So you're seeing veterans produce. But you got Evangelista. He's got 9 goals. I'm not saying that these younger players have been bust or they've been awful. But if you're going to get secondary scoring, which every really good NHL team has to have to compete, if you're going to get secondary scoring, it's got to come from those players, and they're not getting it right now. And that's why we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but that's why Parssinen has been sent to the Milwaukee Admirals, is because these younger players, and Brunette has talked about this, their confidence is a little shaken right now, and that's to be expected.
Yeah,
and these are the things that every fan should not be surprised about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another thing to kind of build on that is we see a lot of times Brunette says in these press conferences hey, when he made that one comment about how there are too many passengers on board. He also said stuff how some nights he feels like these guys should listen a little better, and people look at that and saying, oh, these guys are just immature. Well, they're young. They are supposed to be a little immature. That's part of the journey. They're not you can't expect these guys to come into the league and be like Philip Forsberg right now. I mean, Forsberg's been in the league for almost 10 years now. He's been through it. He's a veteran. Same with the guy like Roman Josi, Ryan McDonough, Ryan O'Reilly, Gus Nyquist. Again, you can't expect these guys to come in and just, know everything. They're naive. They're supposed to be a little bit. So well, it certainly means something as far as this year, they're not there yet. It's that's supposed to happen. It's part of the journey. And, at least as of right now, we shouldn't be that surprised about it.
And I think that's why it's so important that you handle this very delicately right now. If you're Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette, when it comes to deciding, for instance, Juuso Parssinen, but going to the Milwaukee Admirals, but also just your healthy scratches. And so you saw Philip Tomasino get healthy scratch, and he battled his way through it. Luke Evangelista has been a healthy scratch, only one game, if I remember correctly. But, he's also been going through it. I mean, I think it was this past game, again, in the loss to the Florida Panthers. I mean, Evangelista has been getting bullied off the puck lately, and he's going to continue to go through that, being an undersized, skilled offensive player. And it's a very hard league to make it in at his size. I'm not using that against Evangelista. I think he's got incredible talent, but I watched it. He has been getting bullied off the puck lately. He's got to work through that. He's got to figure out ways, and his line mates have got to find ways to get him involved where he's not getting bullied off the puck. But it was not just Evangelista. Tomasino's been getting bullied off the puck lately. He's been getting out physical with these bigger, more rugged physical teams. The Panthers went on a physical clinic on the Predators in that 4-1 loss.
They sure did.
I mean, every time I saw a Predators player with the puck, it felt like they were getting bumped off the puck, and it was going back the other way for the Panthers.
Yeah,
that's how that's that entire game for me.
Their combination, especially in the first period, their speed, their combination of speed and physicality was just too much for us to handle. Like and credit to the Preds for not letting it totally get away from after the first period. I thought the way that was going, I thought we were gonna lose, 4-0 or something like that, and they held, and that kind of, and maybe that speaks to saying, hey, maybe this team is if anything, a well-coached team. They can stay in games like that where they shouldn't be anywhere near, because if you watch that first period,
they were being outshot 22-4.
Yeah,
like at one point.
Against a team, especially against a team that made the finals last year, and they're still doing pretty well afterwards. You would think that the Preds really shouldn't have much business being in those games, and you can see why. They're just
So when it comes to this younger core of players, and I've really got my four that I focus on, it's Parssinen, Novak, Evangelista, Tomasino. Those are my four. Those are my four that are so vital to the long-term plan of this organization. And a lot of those decisions are going to have to be made on those four this offseason. You've got Tomasino. He's a restricted free agent. Parssinen, restricted free agent. Tommy Novak, unrestricted free agent. So a lot to figure out with those four players. But those four are really important when it comes to the young core of this team. But I went even deeper. I do think the depth scoring is the biggest glaring issue that's going to keep this team from making the playoffs right now. It cannot be the top line that carries this team in. Phil Forsberg is on a three-game goal drought, I believe, or maybe even longer than that. He hasn't scored a goal in a while. It's been a few games.
It feels like all of January he's been in a little bit of a slump.
He's been held out of it. He was a non-factor against the Panthers. But I think teams are starting to realize that, like, hey, we're not gonna let Phil Forsberg beat us. This guy's on a heater. But I wanted to do some dig. I wanted to dig deep into this a little bit more. So before we went live tonight, went deep into it a little bit. So I wanted to see the percentage of goals scored by some of the top scoring teams in the league compared to the Predators. So the Predators have scored 142 goals this season, which is 17th in the league, tied with Minnesota in terms of goals scored. So yeah, right there in the middle of the league. 36% of the Preds goals have been scored by Forsberg, O'Reilly, or Nyquist. Now that seems like pretty high, but I was actually surprised myself when I went further into the numbers. That's actually lower than some of the other teams that really are elite at scoring, and they just rely on top goal scorers. So you look at a team like the Tampa Bay Lightning, they've scored 162 goals this year. Kucherov, Braden Point, and Steven Stamkos have scored 44% of that team's goals. Let's look at Vancouver, the top offensive team in the league right now, with 178 goals. JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, and Brock Besser have scored 41% of that team's goals. Colorado, 177 goals scored this year. Druin, McKinnon, and Rantanen have scored 35%. So what I'm trying to tell you is this is a very normal thing for your top line to score the majority of your goals. There's one outlier, and it's my Stanley Cup predicted team going into the season. And I really do think it's the sweet spot. Now, it just gives me another reason to think that Dallas has got the sweet sauce to win it all in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Dallas is one of your deepest teams in the league when it comes to scoring. They get the love from all over their lineup when it comes to scoring goals. Dallas has 172 goals on the year. Only 29% of those goals come from their current top line. Just 29%. They are the sweet spot when it comes to balanced scoring. So that kind of threw me off a little bit, though, because I thought the Preds were kind of like one of those teams that were relying too heavily on their top line, but it seems like more like they're more like the average. If anything, they're below average.
Yeah, I didn't see those stats before. It's kind of tough to wrap my head around, but I would think you'd still want to see more from what was ours, 36%?
Yeah, 36% from our top line.
I feel like you'd want to see more, but seeing the rest of those stats, I mean, the teams you just mentioned, is maybe you could say because Colorado didn't really go far last year. Could you say that maybe that's a fairly telling stat about, for Colorado and Vancouver, their chances? Because the other team you listed, Tampa Bay, isn't doing that great this year. I mean, did you see Winnipeg's? That's a team I'd be curious to know.
I didn't actually look up Winnipeg. I should. I could get it. I could find it pretty quick, but I had to do some math while I was doing that research. But the point I was trying to make was I do think that the Predators can really unlock their full potential and not only make the playoffs, but maybe even win a first-round series if those younger four players I just mentioned can regain that confidence and start finding ways to score. And I think that's what Andrew Brunette is trying to figure out right now. He is scrambling to put that puzzle together. It's not easy. No one's going to hold it against him if he doesn't figure it out this season in year one. I would hope not, because you're being incredibly unrealistic if you are. But we can all hope for it, right? We can all hope for it, at least. And I think that's the secret. That's the secret thing that can really unlock the potential, because one thing that's so frustrating about this Predators team right now is they cannot get UC Saros to have a great game and the offense to have a great game on the same night. It feels like they're chasing the holy grail for that to happen right now.
Yeah, I mean, and what's funny is in these past few games that the Preds have kind of fizzled out on offense, Saros has been playing pretty well. Like, he's the 3 straight games against LA, Arizona, and don't let the stats against Arizona fool you. He was on his game that game. And against Florida, and again, 4 goals given up, but 2 of those were empty netters. Saros in the past 3 games has been doing really well. And then again, game against the Islanders, won that game with a last-second goal with Alexander Carey to take a 2-1 lead. Saros was really good then. So yeah, I mean, it's what you said is absolutely true, and that is a little frustrating. But again, you got. Again, I guess that's going to be with, especially, I mean, we'd hope Saros himself be more consistent, but this offense, the skaters, you got to be a little more patient with.
I just want to see one game where they both show up at the same time, because I feel like if Saros has an off night, the offense still somehow scores 4 or 5 goals, but we lose 6-4 or whatever it is. Or it's Saros stands on his head, he does everything he can, but you give him 1 or 2 goals of goal support. Like, I mean, that's the secret recipe you're looking for right now if you're Andrew Brunette. And it can't always be, we need Ryan O'Reilly and Philip Forsberg to fill up the stat sheet all night. That's how we're going to have to win tonight. It can't be that way. And it hasn't been that way lately. And that's why the Predators have lost 3 of their last 5 games. And and this game against the Minnesota Wild really looms large. So for me, to answer the question in the opening faceoff, it's definitely those 4 players I just mentioned. Now, Parssonen's already in Milwaukee. We're about to talk about that, so it's kind of hard for him to score right now when he's not even on the team. But my point stands. Novak, Tomasino, and obviously Evangelista. Those guys have got to start getting more into the scoring more regularly. They got to find some chemistry. That second line is going to be very interesting to see what Andrew Burnett goes with now that Parssonen's not in the lineup. But Parssinen was a healthy scratch in the last game, and he's been given that spot to Denis Gurianov on the second line, who's been showing a lot of speed. He just can't score. He's got the one goal in garbage time, but I really want to see that guy score because he is out there. Dude, he is pushing the pace. He is showcasing his speed. He's put some really good shots on some of these goaltenders, and the goaltenders have just made the saves.
Yeah.
I really want to see that guy get rewarded with some goals. Yeah. I really do.
I agree. I'm seeing exactly what you're seeing with Gurianov right now, but unfortunately, I think that's been something that's plagued him his whole career, the inability to finish a lot of play. Like, that's why he's, despite his talents, he's been bouncing around from team to team. Nothing's really materialized as far as consistency on a team that he's been on. But, I'm with you. I absolutely want to see him score more. And, one player you didn't mention, and who knows how it's going to be because he seems to be in limbo, but you want to see him do more, obviously, is Cody Glass. You want to see him start lighting it up, but it's just been not there for him this year. It's tough.
I mean, I hate to say this, but my confidence right now is really, really low on Cody Glass. And I hope I can be proven wrong on it, but he's just such a non-factor right now that he's going to have to just drastically turn around his season. Otherwise, I could see him being part of a trade package. I really could.
Absolutely. Yes.
I could see him being lumped into a trade package. And I don't even think the Predators are going to be big buyers in this trade deadline. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But I could definitely see him just lumped into some type of a mid-level trade, nothing that shakes the internet or anything like that. But I don't know. I don't see where it moves forward, but we'll see. But my confidence is pretty low. I would love to see him break out, and I know he has it in him, but how long has he had now to break out of his slump? And he hasn't done it.
Yeah, it's definitely dwindling for me too. I mean, he hasn't shown anything to show that we really should. I mean, he's had some flashes here and there in some games, but is it enough? Not really.
Yeah. All right, let's move along here. Let's get more into Juuso Parssinen. Kind of a surprise move, I would say. I don't think anyone expected it necessarily, but I think it's a very wise move by the front office. You got to have the long game in mind here, not the short game. And when it comes to Juuso Parssinen, he's another one of those players that is kind of gripping the stick, like they like to say. He's overthinking things. He's lost some confidence. That's what Andrew Burnett always likes to say about these younger players is they're playing with a lack of confidence. And so Parssinen is now going to get the opportunity to go down to Milwaukee. He is waivers exempt, so you have that freedom there to send him down there and rediscover his confidence. Let's let him dominate on the AHL level. The guy, I didn't realize, I knew he didn't play in Milwaukee for very long, but when I looked today, I totally forgot it was that few of games. Right. 10 regular season games and 9 playoff games. That is his AHL experience. That's his North American hockey experience. All of his other experience in main hockey leagues is over in Finland. So, I mean, that in itself is pretty amazing. And to think that when he made his NHL debut in November of 2022, he scored a goal in his first game, and it was a pretty goal. I remember it like it was yesterday. And his third NHL game, he scored 2 goals in a game. Two goals in a game. So, he scored 2 goals in a game in his third NHL game. So he took off like a rocket right when he came in the league, and he never looked back. Well, now he's going through that proverbial sophomore slump, Max.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we say, guys go through that kind of thing all the time where, especially for someone like Parson who's young and experienced. And yeah, I mean, it's absolutely crazy the lack of experience he has. And it's also worth noting that when he came into the Admirals, he went right into the playoffs. He didn't have regular season anything. He went right into the playoffs. So, I mean, I don't want to say he's been dealt a bad hand because he's clearly deserved to come up, and he deserved to come up to the NHL when he did. And and as you said, when he came for that first game, he made his mark, and he didn't look back. But but for these guys who are extremely young, they're basically college age kids right now playing in a grown man's league, and it takes a while, especially in a sport like hockey. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of these prospects take years before they come in. It's not like football where your first round picks expected to contribute right away, and even then, a lot of first round picks in football struggle a little bit too to get up to speed. And I'm not going to go on a huge tangent about football here, but the point being is,
Max, we got football to close out this episode.
Yes.
We got some Titans.
Yeah, we do. Yes, we do.
So we'll save that. But yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, my point being here is like the learning curve for players, especially like Parssinen, is going to be a while. And, and it sucks how you can kind of use these, a player like him with a strong start. You can in no way use that against him, saying, well, why is he not keeping it up? Well, guess what? It's kind of the same thing with the whole team going through a bit of a rut right now. I mean, not the same thing, but they're related. Again, the point being, it's not just going to be, coming in and dominating from the start and continuing. You're going to go through some growing pains, and that's how you get better. And I just see this right now as as an opportunity for Parson to, like you said, regain some confidence, start dominating up in Milwaukee, find this game again, and hopefully come back down to Nashville. And like I also said, I don't know when that's going to be. It may be through the rest of the year. You don't know, but
so let me jump in here. So I think it's absolutely a perfectly fine move that makes sense, especially considering he is in his second full year in the NHL. This is a perfectly normal thing that happens a lot, actually, with second-year players, especially he's a former – let's put this in perspective. We're not talking about a top 20 perennial talent. Not saying he's not talented, but what I'm saying is you treat a former seventh-round pick who got immediately thrusted into the NHL completely different than a player who you might have drafted top 20, top 10, and a player that immediately you thought was going to come in and just completely change the franchise from day one. You've got time for Parssinen to find his game, and that's what you're doing here. You want him to go down to Milwaukee, dominate for a little bit for an already really, really solid Milwaukee team, mind you. So it's not like you're sending him to a really bad prospect team or farm system team that's just like playing horrible hockey, and he's going to have to go down there and be a part of a failing organization. No, he's going to play for a great organization right now in the AHL for Milwaukee Admirals. So you want him to be part of that winning culture. You want him to go in there and feel that success, see that puck go in the net, see him beat those goaltenders, see him get his line mates involved. That's my biggest issue with Parsonen's game right now is, and I can just go back to the last game I watched him play in, which was against what was against Arizona over the past weekend. I feel like he's overthinking things when I watch him skate. And it's so crazy because when I was really watching him closely in his last game, and it wasn't because I had any kind of insider information or anything that I thought he was going to be sent down, but for some reason I was just really focused on his play against Arizona, and I just felt like he was overthinking things a little bit too much with the puck, and he was getting bullied off the puck. And a player of his size should not get bullied off the puck like he does. He's really good at drawing penalties with his puck handling and his puck possession. But it was a rough game for him. And I remember coming away from that game thinking that. And I just think that a big reason that the biggest glaring decrease in Parsons' numbers this year are definitely his assist numbers. He's a prototypical center. That's what the Predators want him to eventually be. They eventually want him to be a center, right? Well, he's got 4 assists this season. That is, I don't care if he is in his second year. That's a concern. He's got to be getting more people involved right now.
Yes.
And that goes right back to my opening statement and the opening face-off. What is plaguing this team right now? It's those 4 younger players. They all got to work together in some capacity. I know they don't always play on the same lines together, but when it comes to Parssinen, I'm not so worried about the goal scoring. He wasn't a big goal scorer in his rookie campaign, but his assist numbers got to come up. He's got to start finding ways to get other line mates involved. He had 19 assists in his first season, and he's only got 4 this year. That's the biggest glaring blemish on his track record this year for me.
Yeah, and a lot of it is probably due to he's playing a lot of this year on the wing, but even then you still expect the numbers.
That's a good point. That's a good point, though. That's a fair point.
Even then, though, you still expect the numbers to be a little better than that. I mean, it shouldn't fully change. I mean, of course, and he's bounced around from line to line. There's definitely the fit factor, but the truth somewhere in the middle there. And while he's definitely maybe not in the most ideal situation, he's got to he's got to do better for himself. And he was at the beginning of the year, he was on the top line. Like, he was with guys who were going to help him produce. So I mean, he's had some opportunities, and again, it's not all on him. And again, like I say, it's not like it's the end of the world for him at all. But
so let me bring this to you then. Let me bring this thought to you, Max. And maybe I can speak this into existence. I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did, because I'd be a millionaire. But let's think about it from this perspective. We all want to see Juuso Parssinen play at center eventually for this organization. But there's been a backlog of centers on this team, and you can't let everyone play center. And there's some players can't play wing. I mean, some players are not versatile in that nature. Juuso Parssinen is versatile, or at least we thought he was. But ultimately, we want to see Juuso Parssinen play consistently at center.
Yes.
For the Predators. He is a puck managing playmaker who can make other line mates around him better. And I love that you just brought that up, Max. He's played a lot on the wing, and I don't think that is his strong suit.
No.
So post-trade deadline, let's see what this roster looks like. Maybe a center or two is no longer on this team, and that allows Juuso Parssinen to finish out the season at his more natural position at center, no matter where the Predators are at in the standings, whether they're out of the playoffs or they're still competing for a playoff spot. I want to see, when Juuso Parssinen comes back up to the NHL, I need to see this guy at center. And I want to see him be able to get that confidence back. And I want to see him moving the puck, setting teammates, line mates up to have high danger scoring chances. Yeah. And I want to see him handling the puck as well, because we know he can do that. We know he can do the one-on-one moves. We know he can do the power moves to get his own self scoring chances and draw penalties. But I want to see him get his line mates involved more, and he can only really do that if he gets to play at center like he should be playing.
The question is, who do you bump out? Maybe Colton Sissons, because he's shown he can play on the wing a little bit. It's going to be or it speaks what you said earlier. Maybe Cody Glass is in a trade. I mean, you don't want to speculate,
because I think we all realize that Cody Glass can't play a wing. That's not going to work.
Yeah,
for him.
Exactly. I don't really want Novak playing wing either.
I don't mind Colton Sissons playing wing, but
not ideal.
He's such a high IQ player that you need him at center. You really do. Your centers have to be high IQ, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's why Parssinen is being sent to Milwaukee, is to regain those decision-making skills. And again, I'll revisit it. And this is me supporting Juuso Parssinen here. The guy played 19 games in North America. 9 of those were playoff games. We don't even know what he can do on the AHL level. You know how beneficial it could end up being for Parssinen if he goes down to Milwaukee for, let's say, a month. I'm just thinking out loud here. Let's say he goes down there for a month and he dominates and he gets that confidence back. He sees the puck. The game slows down for him a little bit. He sees his line mates succeed based on the decisions he's making on the ice. And then you call him back up, that could be really good for him. So I'm all on board with it. I really am.
I mean, and I'm going to take it a step further, honestly. If say the deadline comes or a month passes, whatever, but for whatever reason, you can't feasibly get Parssinen back into this lineup as a center, if he starts doing really well in Milwaukee, maybe you just roll with it and keep him down there, let him continue to gain that confidence, and rather than putting him back in a wing spot where it's clearly not his strong suit. I mean,
I would be so shocked if Parssinen does not get called back up at some point this season. Even Andrew Burnett pretty much all but said that Parssinen will be back up this year. Tongue in cheek, he didn't go out and say it, but in his post and his thoughts on it in media availability, he pretty much made it pretty obvious that the plans are he's going to be brought back up. But we have to see what happens, of course. But yeah, I think that this is definitely a blessing in disguise for Juuso Parssinen. And then I also saw the Milwaukee Admirals send out on their own main social media account. They sent out pics of Parssinen already at practice with the team, and he was all smiles. He's taking it in stride.
Yeah.
That's the sign of a really good player that's going to go. Player. That's a sign of a great player that's going to go a long ways. He's taking it in stride. I have a strong confidence that Parssinen will be back in the Predators lineup at some point this season, and this could end up being really, really good for him. All right, we're about to talk about the Cole Smith contract extension. But before we get into that, let's tell you about DraftKings real quick, our current offer. We know hockey games move fast, but with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. So, Max, we need the Predators to start scoring more. But What's amazing is you can still score just as fast on the DraftKings Sportsbook app with our current NHL offer. So let's give you some matchups for Thursday, January 25th, according to DraftKings. Let's go ahead and talk about our hometown Nashville Predators. They're on the road at the Minnesota Wild. And right now, DraftKings has the Minnesota Wild as a slight favorite over the Predators. So do that with what you will. Looking over some other matchups that really intrigue me. Arizona Coyotes at the Tampa Bay Lightning. They got the Tampa Bay Lightning as pretty heavy favorites there. I'm not giving betting advice, but I think the Arizona Coyotes are being massively underappreciated in that matchup by DraftKings as the underdogs there. I'm a big believer in the Arizona Coyotes. I think they still got a really good chance at a wild card spot. Other very intriguing matchups. You got the New Jersey Devils at the Carolina Hurricanes. Pretty close matchup, but the Hurricanes are favorites. Anaheim Ducks at the Dallas Stars. Heavy favorites for the Dallas Stars. And you got the Chicago Blackhawks at the Edmonton Oilers. The biggest lopsided matchup of the night. Shocker of the century. The Edmonton Oilers are minus 600 favorites over the Blackhawks. I don't know if you'll ever see a more lopsided line in NHL hockey than the Oilers and the Blackhawks on Thursday night. So if you want to win a lot of money and be a little crazy, bet the Chicago Blackhawks at the Edmonton Oilers on Thursday night. Either way, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers bet just $5 on the NHL and get $200 instantly in bonus bets only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code THPN. The crown is yours. gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available. For problem gambling, call 887-89-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2024, all rights reserved. All right, let me give you my thoughts on Cole Smith getting 2 years, $2 million deal. His first multi-year deal in the NHL. Pretty awesome stuff for Cole Smith. Happy for the guy. We already kind of talked about it in the intro of the episode. I think that this is a bargain. It really is for the Predators. Yeah. It's a wise bargain deal, and that knocks off one of the free agents that were going to be have to be addressed in this upcoming offseason. I can't tell you honestly that I thought Cole Smith would be the first one to get re-signed out of all those forwards, but you know what? They knocked one off the list, Max.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I really like the deal a lot, and there's a lot. Cole Smith obviously is known best for his hitting and being physical, but there's other things he does well. One thing that I've been, if you see me tweeting, you see me talking, maybe even wrote an article about this when I read that article about the key stat leaders from a while back. One of the things he really does well is penalty killing. He's got two shorthanded assists, one shorthanded goal, which doesn't seem like much, but shorthanded, that's a good bit, and he's second on the team in that regard. He's even in his base statistics, he's got more goals already than he did last year. He's in like, I believe 18 fewer games played, or I don't know exactly, but something like that. He already has he has one fewer point. He's for sure going to break that. He's even blocked more shots. He's already shot the puck more than he did last year. He has more shots on goal, and he's got almost a minute more of ice time. It doesn't seem like much, but he's getting better and better. And, I think I was saying, one thing I say is, I think his penalty killing alone is a reason to bring him back. But, there's other things he's done well. And he's also deceivingly fast too. I mean, if you watch him skate, a guy like him, as big as he is, skating as fast as he can, I mean, he's not like Connor McDavid level fast. I'm not going to say that, but he's deceivingly fast. And for a guy that big, that combination of size and
speed, you heard it here first, everybody. You heard it. Hey, make sure you DM Max Greenberg. He said tonight that Cole Smith is just as fast as Connor McDavid. I just heard him. He
exactly.
Said it.
Right
he
there.
Said it.
But anyway, I think, and one thing I also want to touch on too is that, I'm not going to sit here and say the Preds should have committed to Cole Smith long term. He was that kind of guy, but we've seen over the years that it's not so uncommon anymore for a lot of these role players to be getting, multi-year deals. Like we saw Colton Sissons got a 7-year deal. He's been worth that. Nick Paul from the Tampa Bay Lightning got a 7-year deal. Matt Benning for the Sharks got a 4-year deal. He's played for the Preds. And there's other examples out there, but the Preds only gave Cole Smith 2 more years at $1 million per. That compared to what's out there, that's tremendous value. Absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's not like like you say, an earth-shattering deal. It's not one that we're going to look at and say, oh, this is going to change the Preds. But you need role players. I mean, role players are easier to get than, true top flight forwards, but it doesn't mean you need them any less. And to get a guy like Cole Smith, no complaints at all. And in fact, I'm really happy about it. I'm happy for him, for the Preds, and it's great all around.
To get a guy for $1 million per year, a guy who is relentless on the penalty kill. And I mean, the Predators' penalty kill is not where we would like it to see. I still take a really deep breath anytime the Predators go on the kill against almost any elite power play. I take a deep breath, but they've shown some strides here and there. And Cole Smith is probably their best penalty killer outside of maybe Ryan McDonough. I mean, I don't know.
Or Colton Sissons is the other one.
Or Colton Sissons, yeah, that's fair. But I'm saying like he is an integral part of their penalty kill. That's the biggest reason you're bringing him back, and he's a tone setter in the bottom six. And he, what you're really banking on is that tenacity that Cole Smith shows at driving the play and trying to get shots. You want to see that shooting percentage finally come back in his way. I mean, the guy, it's not like the guy doesn't score for a lack of trying. The guy is out there making it's not like he's a complete non-factor offensively. He's like a no event type of player. No, he tries to make things happen offensively, and he just hasn't fine-tuned that part of his game, and maybe he never will. Maybe he just doesn't have that that innate ability to do that, because not very many players do. But if you're the Predators, when you do this deal today, you're banking that what if Cole Smith can suddenly start improving that shooting percentage a little bit and he starts scoring some of these goals, then you really got yourself a bargain, even more than he already is.
Yeah. And, for the record, I don't think any of us here expect Cole Smith to become this offensive juggernaut, but he's still gotten better at it. And, as he's 28 years old, but he's really inexperienced in the NHL. And
for a 28-year-old, he's very inexperienced.
Absolutely. And give him more time, because, it's certainly, everyone can at least at this point admit it's not a fluke that he's playing every night in, night out. I don't think he's been a scratch once this year, and re-signing that deal shows he's not going to be a scratch, and I think, obviously, Cole Smith got a lot of flack from last year, but it's proven that he's a staple in this lineup, and he's going to be, and he deserves it.
So we got the 2024 free agents among the forwards, not the defensemen, on the screen right now for our YouTube viewers. Also on X, thank you for watching right now. If you're watching for the first time, hit subscribe, hit the follow button, get in on the chat, send us some comments. We love to talk with you. So this is a screenshot from earlier today from Cap Friendly. They hadn't updated their site yet, so we can go ahead and knock Cole Smith off this list. He is no longer a UFA this offseason. So that knocks the number of unrestricted free agents among the forwards for the Predators down to 5. So, Max, I got to ask you this, and then I'll answer after you give your answer. How, if in any way, does Cole Smith getting signed first to a contract extension before all these other players, what kind of impact does that make on, let's say, a Yakov Trenin, who we've talked about, or even Tommy Novak, or Michael McCarron, Kiefer Sherwood? These are all players that are unrestricted free agents this offseason. We've already said it very clearly. You can't keep them all. You can't keep every role player.
No.
So what do you think this means for the rest of the lineup, for the free agents?
I'm going to say, I have a note on my phone that I've been kind of editing and playing with the past few weeks. I swear I made it weeks ago, but on that list, I said, the note was, looking at the Preds' potential deadline plans and, who's kind of accounting for who's going to be here, who's going to not be here next year. It was mainly around the players who are, a lot of it was centered around these guys right here who are going to be free agents coming up. And I had a list of players who I'd want to keep, a list of players I'd say maybe the team should trade. Cole Smith was among those players I wanted the team to keep, and they did. So I'm really glad that Andrew Brunette and Barry Trotz did that. But as far as the rest of the forwards, I think you and I have been talking about this. You especially been talking about this. I think this. I feel even. Again, you don't know what's going to happen, but I feel even more confident that Yakov Trenin might be someone who you're going to trade at the deadline, because especially since they do a lot of the same things. Physical penalty killers. That kind of stuff. And especially if when you look, and I don't think in that, his cap hit this year might not affect it that much. And again, these are all cheap deals in the grand scheme of things. But
look at it. I like where you're going with this. Look at it. So Trenin is going to definitely want a pay raise. And you're
Yes.
talking about two players who play very similar styles. Could you argue that Yakov Trenin maybe has a little bit more upside when it comes to offense and a shot and stuff? Yeah, you can argue that. But when it comes to pure value, are you going to be willing to most likely have to, at the very least, double the pay of Yakov Trenin compared to Cole Smith? So if Cole Smith is making $1 million a year, let's just say on the conservative side, to keep Yakov Trenin, you might have to pay him $2 million per year, if not more. Are you going to pay Yakov Trenin double what you pay Cole Smith to essentially do the same things? Probably not. Probably not.
I don't think. And so like I say, I think, Trenin's one guy I think is going to be who probably should be traded. Kiefer Sherwood again, and I think, he doesn't play quite the same way as Cole Smith. I think he has a little more, how do I say, I think skating ability a little bit, but they do a lot of the same things. I think he's gone, and he's been healthy scratch a lot of these games recently. I think they should absolutely look to trade him deadline if they can. And then with the other guys, McCarron, bit of a toss up here. I think Guryanov's probably one guy you go with. I think, especially with his skill set, even if you don't think he's a long-term piece, I think his skill set makes him a better fit. You can get who he can play with, like the Tomasinos, the Glass if he comes back, Evangelista, Novak. I think his skill set makes him a little better for this roster, especially when you got a guy like Cole Smith, and especially like if you're gonna, especially when you look at these free agents, when you're gonna keep probably the physical guys, Trenin, Smith now, Sherwood, McCarron, you're gonna probably keep at least two of those, and I think with Smith here, I think you probably, out of McCarron, out of Trenin, and of Kiefer Sherwood, I think you probably want to try and trade at least two of them.
You can keep Guryanov and McCarron for really, really cheap deals if you want to keep them and you believe in them. I think just sitting here right now, those are my two that I would look to keep. Because they just have upside. I think that McCarron is just a really safe player to keep around that's not going to need a big pay raise. He is what he is. He's not anything more. He's been around for a while. He's a safe player to have in your bottom six. He is a safe fourth line center who can also play wing on the fourth line. You can healthy scratch him here and there, and it's not going to be a big deal. He's a big body. He can do certain things. He's not going to be expensive to keep. So I would expect right now to keep Michael McCarron. The jury is still out on Denis Guryanov. He has played 8 games now. I'm really intrigued to see what the Predators are going to do with him, because they got to send him back down soon before he becomes eligible to be waived again. So I think he's done a lot of good things, but has he done enough to get another contract? I don't know.
I mean, again, like I say, I think his skill set certainly makes him a fit for, at least for the short term, playing alongside guys like I say, your Tomasinos, Evangelistas, Cody Glass becomes back. But as of right now, unless we talk about unless he can really improve that, finishing / execution side of his game, which, as we've said, has been a struggle for him, his main struggle his whole career. You can't commit to him being a long-term piece. But that being said, I think you can
get him for cheap.
Yeah, I do like him being on this team, at least for the short term, because I do think his skill set.
I will say, I am very, very surprised that Cole Smith got a new deal before Tommy Novak, because I feel like that's the highest priority. And maybe I'm just overthinking this. Max, you can call me crazy. You can totally tell me that I'm being paranoid and I'm overthinking this, and I won't take it defensively. But I can't help but think the more and more time that goes by that Tommy Novak doesn't have a new contract extension, especially now that I see that Cole Smith got one. You can't tell me that Barry Trotz isn't at least contemplating offering Tommy Novak in a trade, because Tommy Novak would be a very enticing trade piece for a lot of teams. A lot of contending teams would like to have a Tommy Novak on their playoff roster. Now, like I said, we don't know what Barry Trotz's thinking is right now. But if he decides, you know what, we are 2 or 3 years at best away from really competing, maybe even longer. If he's thinking that in his deepest, darkest thoughts right now, then Tommy Novak might be a player that you have to consider trading. And the fact that he doesn't have a contract extension yet, but Cole Smith does, that makes me think, Max. Am I crazy to think that way?
Not so. I agree with some parts. I don't agree with certain parts. The one part I probably don't agree with. I probably don't think the Smith contract, has that much of an impact on it. They're two different players for sure. And I think it's certainly easier to get a deal with a guy like Smith, who is a bottom 6 role player. We know that's his game, and there's not. I
don't think they're directly linked. What I'm trying to say is Tommy Novak should be a much higher priority. I get what you're saying. It's an easier contract to get hammered out with Smith than it is Novak. Right. I get that. And I don't think they're directly linked. What I'm saying is Tommy Novak, if you really want him as part of your future, that should be one of your top priorities. The fact that it's not been done yet, it shouldn't be that hard of a contract to come up with. The fact that it hasn't been done yet leads me to believe that there's the possibility that Trotz wants to leave all of his cards on the table, especially with still 6 weeks out from the trade deadline. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, and again, I think I don't think that, the Smith contract really has much to do with a Novak signing, but I will say, and I've said this before in this podcast, by the deadline, you need to know what you're doing with Tommy Novak, whether he's signed or traded. You cannot let him go to the end of this year and be an unrestricted free agent. You cannot lose him for nothing. And kind of going back to what we talked about earlier in this episode, you got a lot of centers on this team. There's not enough spots. And if you're thinking, you know what, we're really far out, we don't have a chance anytime soon, we want to acquire draft capital here and potentially free up a spot for a guy like Parssinen to come in and play center or some of these other guys. And if you're nowhere near close to a deal with Novak, how do you not make a trade in that case? I mean, I hate to see Novak go, but the outcome that must be avoided at all costs is losing him for nothing.
I feel like with this current Predators team, Barry Trotz should already be. I won't say he should be 100% sure what he's going to do, but he should be pretty damn close, because how much more can you really expect from this team right now? And Max, you kind of said it at the beginning of the episode. You said, what more can we expect from a new team like this with younger players playing in their second years or their third years? And like, what more can you expect other than this team is in a wild card spot right now? They've already outperformed a lot of where people expect them to be. So if you're Barry Trotz, how much more are you really going to learn one way or the other between now and March 8th? I don't know. I mean, yeah, they could go on a win streak. Yeah, they could go on let's say they somehow pull off like a 6-game win streak or something like that. Even then, even if that happened, are we going to sit here on this podcast and realistically say, oh, they've won 6 games in a row, suddenly now we think that they can win the Stanley Cup? No.
Yeah, no. I'm with you. I absolutely think that Trotz should be, if he's leaning one way, it should be towards being sellers. I don't think there's.
He needs to figure out ways to unload some of these lower to mid free agents, because there's no. One thing we do have going for us in this upcoming offseason is that there's no earth-shattering free agents on the books this offseason, with the exception of Novak. And then we're talking about the forwards mostly right now. But with the exception of Novak, I think he is definitely a critical one that you have to get re-signed, in my opinion. And then on the defensive end of things, Alexander Carrier is an unrestricted free agent, and it's just my opinion. People can disagree with me on it. I think he is very, very important to get re-signed. But other than that, these guys are mostly expendable, and it's not going to be the end of the world if you lose them.
Yeah. And, again, I just go back to the point of, if you can't get a deal done with these guys, I understand you can't always get a deal done, but the outcome you must avoid at all costs is keeping these guys for the sake of a potential playoff push. You finish in a wild card spot. And the same way you ended 2 years ago, and you're potentially losing these guys for nothing.
And you get embarrassed
that's the outcome.
Let's say you get a wild card spot and you have to go up against let's just say Colorado again for the hell of it. I mean, I know the Preds beat them the one time they've met this year, and it was an exciting fashion and everything, but the last thing we want to see is a repeat of that, or even losing in 5, or even losing in 6 would still be nothing worth it when it comes to not trading away players you need to trade away that you're not going to be able to re-sign in the offseason. So I think Barry Trotz is a very smart guy. Even in his first trade deadline, he is a very smart guy, and he already realizes this. And you can pretty much take it to the bank that some of those free agents we just listed are going to get traded at the deadline in some shape or fashion. But it's not going to be in the sense of Trotz is buying. It's going to be in the sense of, like you just said, Max, getting some draft picks, and also freeing up some roster space for Igor Afanasyev to maybe get called up to finish out the season again. Spencer Stastny, one of those types of players who deserve to be on the NHL level right now, but there's not room for them. That's what you're looking at here. Get some more draft picks, even if they're late draft picks. It doesn't matter. Get some draft picks. That's all you're going to get. I don't think it's going to be particularly that exciting of a trade deadline from a Predators perspective. I really don't.
No, I don't think so either. But I think, a lot of people like to talk about, we want like the best pick, but you don't know where you're going to finish. But what you want is draft capital, because that's what you can play with. That's how you can make deals. That's how you can move up in the draft. And one of the things I want to mention is I almost feel like I can't not mention this, in regards to, what you do at the deadline and stuff. It's like, how do you not learn from the near blunder that was the whole Philip Forsberg thing 2 years ago, where he almost walked for nothing? And we got the result we wanted at the end of the day. But you cannot, the old saying goes, if you play with fire, you're going to get burned. And I very much think, the Preds should, again, different regime, I get, but, Bruno and Trotz saw what happened. And, we, as fans, very recent history, we know what happened. And you can't let that happen again. You got to learn your lesson from the 2 years ago and say, look, we got lucky that time. We're not going to make that mistake this time. And if you go into the deadline, you get near deadline and you are still nowhere near deal with Carrier and Novak, you got to cut your losses and be like, you know what? At least let's get something for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff there from Max on that. We have plenty of time, 6 weeks to talk about it. But let's move along here. I want to share my poll on the screen real quick. And before I share it, let me present the question to all of our live viewers on YouTube, on X, on Facebook. Thank you for watching. Hit follow, hit subscribe, comment. The comments really make the episode and make it fun. All right, so my question is, who will be the Preds starting goaltender to open 2024-2025? So the easy answer is obviously UC Saros, but come on. I want you guys to think about it a little bit more, because I don't think it's that clear-cut necessarily. Now, the trade rumors around Saros have simmered a little bit. I don't think people are talking about it as much, but just as recent as a couple weeks ago, I think it was last week actually, Pierre LeBrun of The Athletic even brought up that Barry Trotz is at least entertaining offers right now and picking up the phone, just based on the fact that there are so many teams out there that are utterly desperate for a goalie. And so if it's one of those offers that you cannot refuse, that's why I asked this question. So I'm about to put the poll results up there. that I asked all of the followers on social media about and give you those poll results. But let me ask Max first. Who is your starter game 1 season opener for the Predators between the pipes?
Unfortunately for the sake of this episode, I got to go with the boring answer and say it's probably still going to be Juice. It's probably still going to be Juice, honestly. I mean, and, absolutely Barry Trotz should be at least picking up the phones. I think he'd be dumb to not at least see what's out there. And, I think, they're with the way Saros has been inconsistent, if someone is really willing to make a huge offer, it'd probably be pretty hard not to capitalize on it. But I can't imagine that he's actually going to make that deal, because I think we've seen back to last summer when he was even willing to dangle Askarov as potential trade bait, and we've seen him this year. He's voiced his confidence in Juice. I'm going to say I'm at the point where I don't think I'd be stunned. I wouldn't be stunned or even really that surprised if Saros is indeed traded, but I can't actually predict he's going to make that deal. I think he will be back between the pipes next year.
So the only way that it would not be UC Saros in this poll, your choice, is if he gets traded, obviously, at the 2024 deadline.
Or in the offseason.
Yeah, I guess it could happen. But interesting, I think that the fact that the voters went 36% on Askarov, that was pretty surprising.
That's surprising, yes.
I thought Saros would have a lot more of the vote. I find it kind of interesting that Lankinen got 10%. I think that's just more or less thinking.
That's what really surprises me, that it's so much more Askarov over Lankinen, because I would think that next year you wouldn't want to be starting Askarov. You want to be starting, or at least letting him split.
I think the line of thinking between voting Lankinen there is thinking, okay, they're going to trade Saros. They're going to retain Lankinen for much cheaper than what it would cost for Saros when they have to give him a new contract. And they do 50-50 starts between Askarov and Lankinen next year. I think that's the thinking there. And then we already know the 1% other was our former co-host, Rich Howe, who voted for Luca Spiza.
Classic.
We already
Rich.
know that.
Classic Rich.
I already outed him on it. I called him out on it, and he did not deny it.
Did he actually say Lucas Spiza?
I don't know. All I know is I accused him of it, and he did not deny it. So that means guilty. That means guilty as charged.
That does mean guilty. That does.
Yeah. So other than that, I don't know why anyone would say 1% other. But anyway, okay. So Max says UC Saros.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm just going to be different.
Okay.
God, I really want to be different, but no, I'm going to say Saros as well, just because I don't want to be wrong. Yeah, I think it's going to be Saros as well. Even if Barry Trotz is picking up the phone and doing his due diligence right now, which he should, as a general manager, you should always pick up the phone. But I don't think there's any team out there that in their right mind would be willing to give enough to Trotz for him to actually do it.
Yeah, it'd have to be something pretty on the unreasonable side of things.
Yeah. So I think that there's not a team out there that's going to go that far just to get Saros. But they're definitely going to test Trotz. They're going to give him offers. Trotz is going to be answering that phone probably 50 times a day until March 8th, listening to offers. But I think he's pretty steadfast in keeping Saros and eventually getting a contract done. And that contract needs to get done. If not before the end of the season, it needs to get done in the offseason. We do not want this drama trickling into next season. We just don't.
Yeah, I mean, at the very, very latest, I mean, it's kind of the same deal as I said a bit ago. At the very, very latest next year's deadline, but you don't.
I think that's even too late.
Want to go that far. You don't want to go that far.
No. That's because you don't want that kind of noise lingering over your franchise goaltender contract year. Let's say Saros and he's streaky. We know he's streaky. Let's say that next year he goes through another 20-game, 15-game slump where he's not playing on his top level. You think it's dramatic now, and you think that fans are freaking out now? In a contract year, it's going to get ugly. So if they want to keep him, and if they're serious about him being the franchise goalie, they need to get a contract done quick. Yeah. That's just all I'm saying there on that one.
Yeah.
But those poll results were interesting for sure. Let me share some comments on the screen that I found interesting as well. Let me get them here. I always love hearing from the fans on questions like this because you get a broad perspective, but mostly got everything from agreeing with Saros as well. So as you can see there, some good comments there. Preds season on Twitter says Saros, but I think it will be more of a 50-50 split with Askarov. What do you think about that, Max? Do you think it'll be more of a 50-50 split?
Probably not. I think if Saros is back, he's your starter.
Yeah. So that commenter also goes on to say, I don't think anyone will pay the high price for him in a trade year to cap space constraints, and he should not be moved for anything other than a huge overpay. Jesse on X says Saros, unless something crazy comes in that even Saros wouldn't say no to. So Saros doesn't really have a say in it.
Right.
If he gets traded, he gets traded. But I think that if we could ask Saros one-on-one, he wants to stay in Nashville.
Probably.
But the comment, Jesse also goes on to say here, I got it. Askarov has the potential, but Saros is proven. Hard to move a proven commodity to take a chance.
Yeah.
And then we've got James on X also commented on the post and says, Saros, there's absolutely nothing wrong with letting Askarov cook in the minors. Max, that was kind of your overall thought originally on it.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to, with Parssinen is, if the guy's doing well and, you don't really have room for him to seriously play up at the NHL level, why disrupt what's going right and, keep him there where he's going to continue to build that confidence. And because you don't want him going into the league and, and sitting a bunch. You want him playing a good bit. So, of course, he's not going to come into the league and be a starter right away. But, but as long as if you don't think you can commit to playing Askarov the appropriate number of games he would take that truly, be worth it, then why not let him stay there where he's doing well? And especially, players, hockey players in general, but goaltenders especially, take a while to develop. So why would you rush that?
Very true. Very true. All right. Let's round it out. We got a couple other topics to get into. We're going to quickly do our Central Division rundown segment. One major topic, that is the news brought up today about NHL expansion to Salt Lake City, Utah. My first thoughts on this is, what does that mean for the Arizona Coyotes and their relocation purposes? Because I don't think the NHL needs to expand to additional teams. If anything, they might need to relocate a team, but I don't think we need to add an additional team to a league that's already struggling with a lot of profits, that they have TV deals that are a mess regionally with Bally and all that. Fix your issues that you already clearly have.
Right.
Before you start expanding to unknown sports markets just because the Utah Jazz exist in the NBA. Okay, the NBA is a completely different animal. So let's stop trying to compare the NHL to the NBA. Just because the Utah Jazz worked out in the NBA doesn't mean that it's going to work out for the NHL in Utah. That is a very bold relocation idea, and I don't see that it logically makes sense unless it's the Coyotes relocating there.
Right. Yeah, I think that would clearly be the team. As far as the area itself, Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah is clearly It's cold over there. There's a lot of outdoor stuff, skiing. I go there a lot. I might even be going there in a few weeks, as my family does ski trips out there fairly often. Park City, which is like 30, 45 minutes from Salt Lake. I think, it certainly is a, winter area. And I think they could have a pretty nice rivalry with the Avalanche, the Colorado, Utah rivalry. But yeah, I mean, I agree with exactly what you're saying as far as, we shouldn't be expanding. 32 teams is plenty enough. I don't, and that throwing a 33rd team in there would totally mess with the league structure.
That would open up room to add another Canadian team, which has been they've been pleading to add another team to Canada, which I'm not saying that's not rightfully so, but 34 teams is way too many. So let's say Salt Lake City becomes the 33rd team and you throw off the league balance, well, then you got to add a 34th team. And I think we can all agree that 34 teams is way too many for the NHL.
Yeah. And, if we thought the NHL with their divisions and the whole schedule matrix was as clunky as it was, well, throw a 33rd team in there and my Lord, it's going to be even crazier. I mean, expand. They absolutely should not consider expanding out there. But if they are going to relocate a team, it's definitely got to be the Coyotes because their future in Arizona is certainly in limbo. I believe, I don't know exactly how their arena plans on there are going, but I knew it wasn't I knew they didn't get that one arena, wherever it was. I knew it wasn't looking great for them there. But yeah, I mean, that would make clear sense to get them out there because, you wouldn't have to. They wouldn't have to be like a realignment like when Atlanta moved to Winnipeg and they just couldn't keep them in the Southeast. Like if you keep them the exact same, they could stay in the Central. They'd certainly be the westernmost team in the Central by far. But they wouldn't be relocating very quick. It wouldn't be like a huge relocation like that. You still can keep the conferences intact. So yeah, I think if they're going to get a team to Salt Lake, that's your only option really, unless you move the Coyotes up to somewhere in like East, like Quebec City, and you move the team to the East out there. I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but the bottom line is we're both.
And it is Mike Twitter just jumped in the comments here and offered some clarification. It really is more of just a proposal from the Utah Jazz owner. And we already kind of covered it at the beginning of the episode. It really feels like a PR stunt to overshadow the really ugly news that came out with the Hockey Canada news, sexual assault allegations that are just like a massive dark cloud over the sport today. But just speaking on pure expansion terms, the only way I'd be on board with it, where it would make sense, would it be cool to have a team in Salt Lake, like a new market, and for the NHL to explore that? That'd be cool. Because as cool as Mullet Arena is, and to see a team play in a hockey arena, we just saw the Predators play there. The camera angles are different. The sound is different. Like, it would be cool to go to a game and see a hockey game in a college arena. It's not sustainable. No. And it doesn't seem like they're moving the ball forward at all on figuring out a long-term solution. So I could see Salt Lake City being first in line to get a relocation franchise. I wouldn't be against that.
Yeah, absolutely not. And but yeah, I think we're definitely in agreement that it's Salt Lake's going to get a team. It's going to be relocation, and it's got to be the Coyotes because no one knows what's happening. It certainly doesn't look good with their chance of getting an arena down in Arizona, and they cannot play in Mullet Arena, the 5,000 seat.
I really do want to. If the Predators can't make the playoffs, I want to see the Coyotes make the playoffs because I want to see them host a playoff game in Mullet Arena. That'd be hilarious and also really funny. All right. Final thing. We got to do some Titans time. And Max is ready to go. He's got smoke coming out of his ears. He's so ready to talk about this. So the Titans it's Titans time to wrap up episode 219 of Catfish on Ice. Some really big news to talk about here. The Titans have hired their new head coach. Finally, the search is over. Yep. Tell us about the new guy in charge. Do you like the move? What does this coach specialize in? Give us the rundown on the newest head coach of the Tennessee Titans.
Well, before I get into that totally, I will say that I'm glad that we waited till today to record because there was a lot of Titans news that came out that's worth talking about. But as far as the new hire, it is Brian Callahan, who was the offensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals from 2019 to 2023. And it just shows the Titans are going in a completely different direction. We had Mike Vrabel here, who was more of an old school, run the ball, physicality, all of that stuff. But now you got Brian Callahan, who's coming in here. He's worked with a lot of different quarterbacks in the past. Every time, if you ever hear him talk, he's always talking about how, you win in this league with good quarterback play, passing the football. That's got to be the focal point of your game, but you still got to run the ball a little bit, take advantage of light boxes. I love where he's at from the philosophical standpoint there. He also is very into analytics, something that the Titans really didn't do beforehand with, John Robinson and Mike Vrabel when they were the GM and head coach respectively. And another thing also about Brian Callahan is just how beloved he's been by his players and even other coaches. Zach Taylor said a lot of great things about him, who's the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. He's coached Matthew Stafford before, who said really good things about him. He's been with Peyton Manning before. He has a lot of experience, and I think he absolutely seems like a really, really good fit from not only a philosophical standpoint, from a leadership standpoint. And one other guy a lot of people were looking into for the Titans to potentially hire was Bobby Slowick, who is the offensive coordinator for the Texans. He's getting a lot of interviews now, but the more I really thought about it with him, he's only 36. It's his first year being an offensive coordinator. His experience is much inferior to Brian Callahan's, and I think from leadership and from what he brings as far as what he believes in from a football standpoint, I think he's absolutely a perfect fit for this team. And you could just tell how badly the Titans wanted him. They brought him in for a second interview Monday, didn't let him out of the building. After that, Monday night, we knew he was the guy. But also, and I love this from the Titans, he was coming in on a flight from Cincinnati, and his flight got canceled due to the weather. But instead of having to make him drive in, the Titans flew their own private jet to Cincinnati so that he would make it in time. So
that's cool.
That's what you do when you like someone that much. You want to bring him in. So
it comes down to
I like the hire a lot. I think it's a great hire.
So Max, it comes down to just like the Predators kind of just did the same thing. The Titans are shifting more towards an offensive guru now.
Yep.
And does that mean good things for Will Levis that he's going to be getting a head coach that preaches good quarterback play? Because we don't expect Ryan Tannehill to be back, obviously. No. So it's the Will Levis show from here on out, right? For the quarterback.
And he's got to be happy now knowing a guy who's pretty much a proven QB whisperer, and that shows that the Titans really want to build around their QB. And of course, you don't know for sure if it's going to be Levis. You still got to let him play out and get the full answer in the next year or two. But but it shows that if nothing else, the Titans are going to want to give him a chance, and they want to build around this new offensive approach. So I think it's really good as far as what they want to be, and it shows that they're trying to modernize their approach and go more from just hard nosed running the ball to more QB heavy analytics based offense and running the team that way, which is really good.
Well, they probably still got a lot of work to do to fill out that lineup because, I mean, you got to have receivers, right? So do we expect DeAndre Hopkins to be back next year?
I think so. Yeah.
At least you got Hopkins to build around. And I mean, I saw some of the other receivers showed some, well, we'll save that for another episode, but good stuff there in our Titans time to round out episode 219 of Catfish and Ice. Go ahead real quick. I know you want to get into the last thoughts.
So did you hear, I'm sure you saw rumblings about it on Twitter. Did you hear about Wesley Woodyard's interview with 104.5 The Zone, I believe it was?
I didn't dive deep into it, but I did come across it. But fill me in on exactly what it's something to do with Mike Vrabel, right? Yeah,
he said some pretty rough stuff if it's true about the head coach. So I take the tweet from my man Tyler Rowland, Tic Tac Titans on Twitter, and he gave the kind of rundown, and he gave an overview of like the hard facts and general anecdotes. So the hard facts were that he said that from Woodyard was Vrabel hijacked their defensive meeting before Kansas City in the conference championship game from Dean Pease, who was the old defensive coordinator after they got into an argument. He changed their coverage identity that didn't suit the corners. He kicked players out of the locker room. He kicked players' kids out of their locker room, but he kept his own sons in there, which he eventually changed that. But apparently he talked trash about Mike Milwaukee, veteran players from like day one when he was in there. He called them entitled. And he also talked about, and Woodyard also talked about how, he wouldn't adjust to players. And when you saw guys going elsewhere and playing well, and, talk about being overworked. And, as far as that's concerned, I wouldn't take all that fully at face value. I think, Woodyard he's been talking trash about Vrabel for a long time. And I definitely think it's a guy who's definitely had some sour grapes from,
I would like to hear Vrabel's side of the story, because there's always two sides of the story. But I will say also on that note that Vrabel does come off as like a very ego-driven.
Yes, he's an egomaniac.
And sometimes you do need really strong leaders, but there's a fine line between being a strong leader and being an egomaniac who pushes people the wrong way.
Yes.
Perhaps we'll never know the truth, but there was definitely some stuff behind closed doors that was going on. It wasn't just results driven based on why Mike Vrabel is no longer the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. If it was just results driven, maybe he makes it another year. He would have
been fired that Monday instead of that Tuesday. But also another thing that was mentioned, and I want to talk about was, when you talk about guys like, Harold Landry and Jeffrey Simmons, who were defending Vrabel till they died. Well, they were raised in like the Vrabel way. They didn't know any better coming into the league. And that was also one of the things they talk about. And that's one of those areas where I'm like, I don't know how fully true that is, because you had guys like Taylor Lewan, who obviously loves them. He was around before Vrabel. Mm-hmm. Kevin Byard, he was saying good things. Derrick Henry, too, said good things. And Woodyard also said like he completely lost the locker room. I don't know how true that is. You saw the guys playing hard. But like I say, I think the truth's absolutely in the middle. Like Vrabel's definitely a my way or the highway kind of guy.
Yep.
And he's not everyone's cup of tea for sure. But after a while, and it's certainly more believable when you saw the excerpt about him wanting full control of team operations. It just sounds like Vrabel absolutely wanted it his way.
It's starting to make more sense. It's starting to make a lot more sense now why he was let go. But we are going to end it with that. This has been episode 219 of Catfish and Ice with your hosts Chad Minton and Max Greenberg. We really appreciate you joining us. We will see you next week for a new live episode. Stay tuned for bonus content on the YouTube channel as we get time to do that. Until then, let's see if the Predators can get up off the mat here. They need a good win, a response win against the Minnesota Wild. We'll see if it happens. Until then, thanks for listening and watching. Hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. It helps a ton. Hit follow on X. Until then, see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your weeks, everybody.